Welcome. My name is Tani Cremona. I am a senior majoring in Management Information Systems with a minor in Marketing. My presentation is about CEO humility and inclusion.
The current agenda for this presentation includes the motivation of the research question, what is CEO humility and inclusive environment, propositions of this project, the measurements of CEO humility and inclusive environments, the project timeline, and the potential impact. The news is everywhere all the time. Anytime a company releases a statement or a crucial figure says anything, it can be accessed within seconds. Recent events have shown that CEOs and companies should care about social justice issues. There have been many businesses that have lost the support of the public because they are not wanting to be inclusive or wanting to be accepting of the feedback regarding their inclusivity issues. For example, Goya Foods was boycotted after the CEO, an immigrant from Spain, supported Trump who made derogatory comments towards Latinos. Goya is known as the largest Hispanic-owned food company in the United States, and it's built its purchasing power on the Latino market. The graphic shows how the company was surprised at the public's reaction. Before, the public has been made of people who wanted to watch the news or read newspapers, which honestly was not me at age 13. However, younger audiences have social media platforms such as Instagram and Twitter, and believe it or not, they're accessing just as much information as older audiences even if they do not want to, and sometimes even more. They are the future, and what CEOs have to say about social justice issues drastically affect companies. Events such as these make me curious about how employees and how people outside the company respond to the CEO and how that affects the company.
If you want to access this PowerPoint later, you can click this link to see how your favorite companies have been reacting to racial injustices. Since there is a lot of news that is released on a daily basis, this is a good way to keep updated. This blog has kept track of their reactions since July of last year.
After brainstorming, we formed our research question. How can CEOs create inclusive environments both inside and outside the company? In the next few slides, I will discuss what CEO humility and an inclusive environment are. What is CEO humility? For this research, we are looking at these 5 dimensions: accurate self-awareness, appreciation for the contribution of others, teachability, low self-focus, and self-transcendent pursuits. Each of these dimensions has an observable behavior or behaviors that helps us quickly identify which area they fall into. This will be explained later on in the presentation.
What is an inclusive environment? Before we go into the definition, many companies use diversity and inclusion interchangeably. While diversity is an essential component to understanding inclusion in and outside of the company, they are not the same thing. One way to differentiate between the two can be explained in the graphic below. Diversity asks, who is in the room? And inclusion asks, have everyone's ideas been heard?
We adapted our definition for an inclusive environment from this 2018 definition. An inclusive environment facilitates belongingness by supporting individuals as group members, ensures justice and equity, utilizes shared decision-making, and values uniqueness by encouraging diverse contributions. A company affects their internal and external community. These are the propositions we want to test in the future. Inside the firm, CEO humility will lead to higher levels of diversity promotion, diversity contracting, disability employment, LGBTQ inclusive policies. Outside the firm, CEO humility would lead to higher levels of corporate giving and employee community engagement. How do we measure CEO humility? The way we are going to measure these propositions are in this table created by Dr. Maldonado in her published research in 2015. Here we see the 5 dimensions that we saw under the What is Humility slide earlier. It shows how they are interpreted, examples, and how they will be coded. So far in this study, in the blue boxes, I have completed collecting information about accurate self-awareness, appreciation of others, and CEO advice seeking. In these items, I had to code the number of incidents that I have found in CEO shareholder letters. I counted the number of times the CEO mentioned that they sought advice, accepted blame, admitted weakness, and in the contribution of others. This is how we are going to measure inclusive environments. We use the KLD statistic tool for analysis of trends, and the KLD is a database that measures firms' corporate social responsibility. So far, I have collected qualitative CEO humility data for 57 CEOs, analyzed 4 shareholder letters for each CEO using the methods described earlier, and 43 of the CEOs are usable for the final data analysis so far. The next steps in this project are to collect qualitative CEO humility data for 57 additional CEOs, collect KLD data, analyze the data, and finally, write the paper. Potential impact. According to an article from Sodexo Groups, inclusive environments increase retention rates in companies, employee engagement, and people who are willing to apply to the company. We hope this project will provide guidance to CEOs and managers on how to create inclusive environments so that their companies can benefit the rewards of inclusive environments. We are pleased to see that many companies are making strides towards creating inclusive environments, including Nike and many others. This slide is an example of what we would like to see when companies promote inclusive environments. In this case, how Nike addressed social injustice. It doesn't matter how many people hate your brand as long as enough people love it. And as long as you have that attitude, you can't be afraid of offending people. You can't try and go down the middle of the road. You have to take a stand on something, which is ultimately why I think the Kaepernick ad worked. On the right is the ad that Nike used to address the role of the activist Colin Kaepernick, represented in the fight against racial injustice, police brutality, and systemic oppression in the United States. Phil Knight realizes that part of his audience are people who experience the treatment of systemic oppression every day. When having a conversation with an endorser, he spoke about how his biggest fears are not even in the realm of what others' fears might be. His position gives him the power to speak up and make others who are not in the same reality the ability to get a glimpse into what others have to experience. Another example of what we like to see is Chobani. During the Trump administration, he spoke about restricting immigration. Many CEOs had their opinions. As you saw on the third slide, Goya's CEO had their own perspective. The founder and CEO of Chobani Yogurt was already taking action long before the Trump administration came to office. At Chobani's yogurt plants, 30% of the workforce is made up of immigrants or refugees. He has recruited workers from the refugee resettlement centers and provided them with transportation and translators so they can adapt to their new workplace. Additionally, all workers that were considered refugees or immigrants were paid above minimum wage. In the TED Talk, the Chobani CEO says, "The playbook that guided business and CEOs for the past 40 years is broken. We need a new playbook that sees people again, that sees above and beyond profits." He credits his success to his hands-on approach to working with employees and communities.
Thank you for coming to my presentation. I would like to express my thanks to my faculty advisor, Dr. Maldonado, for guiding me on this project and for the chance to work with her throughout the semester. It has been a pleasure speaking with you today about CEO humility and why it's important for CEOs and companies to push for a more inclusive environment in and outside of the company. Enjoy the rest of the symposium.